the police station also at Common?
Police station was in here. I've written a history of the police department. It was about 22, 23. Before that they had constables who were the same thing. And there was a great feeling between Chelmsford Center and North Chelmsford. Now people don't care where they live, but in those days they did. And I have often said facetiously that if the constable from the center was following a rum runner, and we had a few during Prohibition, go 3 o'clock in the morning, he was following one up that way, and he got up to foot of Drum Hill, where Old Westford Road is. That was the precinct line. He better stop there, because the constable up there would probably chase him and give him a ticket rather than chasing the rum runner. That seemed like a lot of feeling. Another interesting thing about Town Hall, at one time it had a police firing range. As you go downstairs in the Town Hall, the right-hand side, I guess, is where the boilers are still. Then there's the back staircase that goes down. Under the back staircase, just before it came to school, the police set up a table with a box of sand on it and a piece of steel, heavy steel, at 45 degrees. They'd hang a target in front of that. Of course, the bullet would go through the target, hit the steel, and get down into the sand. And you'd stand up at this end by the door. This was the women's toilet and check room, and the door into the basement there. Stand right there and fire. And they had a 32 service revolver with a 22 barrel on it, and shoot 22 shots. I've done that some, but there aren't many people around here. Not even cops, because they'd be older than me. I'm just a young fella. I was 83 on St. Patrick's Day. But yeah, that was something else about the town hall. My grandfather was town clerk, and I have some correspondence that he wrote about grading it and fixing it up. And the basement, well, first of all, you go in here and go into the back was the lower town hall, where they had lunch. You'd have a dance, and you'd always retire to the lower town hall for ice cream and cake, and maybe go back to dance. And the basement was pretty much unfinished beyond the toilets on either side. The right, I say, was the boiler room with a gravel floor, sand floor. The left was just a sand floor. And then, I'm trying to think, it was when my father was town accountant. He was town accountant from till 47, from 32 till 47. And he, maybe 49, I guess it was. At that time, they reworked the town hall some. They used to have the vault where the men's room is now, right opposite the town clerk's office. And I have all the clippings in the News Weekly about that. And they put in offices in the basement, veterans and Board of Health, I guess, and they put in the police garage. And then they put the addition on the back for the police department. Before that, I think it had been in just one of the offices. My father organized a bowling team among the employees, town employees. I remember Arthur Cook, chief police, bowled with us. I bowled with him all the time. And at that time, I'm not sure whether they'd put the little back on or not. But before that, they didn't have Alan Adams, who was murdered in, what was it, 27, 28, and 29. I was away at scout camp in Constable. And during the time I was there, you've heard about that probably, but he got well, there was a man came out on the streetcar from Lowell, a man by the name of Saab. You may have heard of Saab. He's a real estate man. I don't know any relative. Came out on the streetcar, got off down the center of town and walked up Bartlett Street to the home of A.G. Pollard. Now that's, I think it's a Greek family lives up there now. I can't think who. It was right at the crest of Robin Hill, on crest of Bartlett Street on the left-hand side. And he was a very wealthy man, had a private chauffeur. This is his summer home. I remember him stopping at the mail at noon when I was going home from grammar school to lunch, and he'd sit there, arms crossing his head, looking up in the sky, wouldn't recognize anyone. Well, this man confronted A.G. Pollard. His chauffeur was in the yard there too, and he demanded money, claimed he'd misrepresented him or something, and he wanted money, and I can't remember whether they gave him any or not. Maybe the chauffeur did. But he left there and walked back to the center of town and got the streetcar that had been down as far as Warren Avenue. Whether it was the same car, it came every half hour, may have been a half hour later, and got on the car and started for Lowell. Well, he got down to the railroad crossing. People had called Don Adams, the constable, and then he became the first chief of police, although he signed it chief when he was constable. Tried to call him, and he was out somewhere around town, but they notified enough of the stores, so they got hold of Don, and he went down there on his motorcycle to the railroad crossing by the Little League field, and the car was stopped there. The motorman had gone over. There was a little crossing tender's shanty to get a drink of water. And so Adams said, "Come out here, I want to talk to you." No, the guy wasn't going to do that. So Adams went up the steps, started down the aisle. Saab pulled out a pistol, killed him right then. Well, the man sitting next to Saab lived in this house, Harold Davis. He graduated from MIT in 1901. Then he had a nervous breakdown. He worked for the telephone company, and he worked for the highway department, picking up papers. I mean, that's all he could do at that time. Always at church with his Bible, and he was sitting next to him, and he had the presence of mind to pin his arms together. And the motorman on the streetcar picked up his switch stick. You know what a switch stick is? Crowbar that they'd switch, and hit him over the head. And it dazed him anyway. I know it knocked him out right away. But that just happened fortuitously. There was a Lowell cop off duty with his family driving by. Somebody stopped him. He came in, arrested him, took him into Lowell, the police station. And Adams died right after that. He had two daughters. And they used to live in the little white house that was a florist, I guess, right down next to Cushing Place, opposite Ruby Emery's. And I can remember when the girls were little tiny ones. I remember once Don being out there, and he put his handcuffs on his daughter's ankles and chased her. But I don't know how he got started on there. He was the one that was murdered, but he was the first police chief in Chelmsford. And I did an article for the Independent about 5 or 6 years ago, the 60th anniversary, I think, of the Chelmsford Police. The interesting thing, if you do anything on Central Square, you know, Beaver Brook runs under it. A lot of people don't think of it. They see it on one side, but they don't realize it. Well, when I was a kid, I lived up 15 Acton Road, so I walked down with my mother, and then later to school. And the sidewalk over the brook and all of the space between the sidewalk and the building were wooden boards like a porch with spaces. You could look down and see the water going.
Is there anybody actually still around who grew up at the Common at that time? I know
at
Mr.
the Common.
Emerson,
What do you mean?
You know, who was like I know Mr.
I was
Emerson.
pretty close.
You're close. Who else is maybe?
Let's see. Margaret Robbins died last year.
How about Mr. Emerson?
Which Mr. Emerson?
Oh,
Brad.
Real estate.
Brad.
Brad, yeah.
Now you see, grow up. He grew up here, but his great-grandfather bought the Emerson farm over here from Hildreth P. Dutton in 1850s or 60s.
Right.
And I knew him. He died in 1926. And we rerouted the Memorial Day Parade because he'd always ridden in a car as a veteran of the Civil War. By the house, he was out on the front steps all bundled up in a wheelchair. He only lived 3 months after that. But yeah, Brad was brought up here, but when was Brad born? 39?
Yeah.
His father, Ted Emerson, who was selectman, Lombard auctioneer. He was brought up here, but he's died. His grandfather, Ralph, lived at number 10 North Road. I knew him well. His great-grandfather, Jim, the veteran, I can remember when he died in the auction they had afterward. But there's no one, possibly, oh no, he died. Jardine Davis, Harold J. Davis, lived in this house here. But I told you his father went nuts. He was in the asylum for a while, I think. And he, Judd used to visit here. He went to school a couple of years. It was while he was in school that some guy got mad and shot a hole through a window in the upstairs of the town hall. And I'm not sure what year that is. I'd like to find it. It's written up in the paper and I can't find it. But he'd been to a dance and got thrown out. He went and got a .22 and came back and shot a hole in the window. And Judd says he remembers it. He was in school. But Judd was brought up there. But he died last December. His grandfather ran the woodworking shop, and his father lived there because he wasn't capable of taking care of himself. In fact, I remember when we had a snowstorm, a big one, the plows couldn't get through. They got up with the garrison house, and drifts were too big. They'd have men go up with shovels and break away for the plows. And I was sitting down in the office, it was about 11 o'clock, and Hal Davis was sitting next to me, and he was mumbling things. And he told me, he said, nothing up here. About that time, the superintendent of the street said, Harold, why don't you go home and get some rest next door? So we did. But Judd visited here a little, but I don't know of anyone else that was brought up.
Thanks again, and I'm pretty sure I'll be in touch with you pretty soon about I'd love to see the pictures you have, come out and see your museum.
Yeah.
I'd love to see also what you have, like what is this the same video I got from Dick? Probably it's the same.
No, I don't have that.
You don't have that?
No, I had it.
You have a different one?
I think I may have had it made for the Historical Society. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I haven't been active in the Historical Society lately, but
Okay.
I'm the only one that's been Secretary, Treasurer, Vice President, President, Director.
Right.
And I was at the first meeting, I think. It might have been the second. I was only 16. You had to be 18, but I went with my folks. So, and
Well, I just became a member, so now.
I've just set up a trust there. About I gave stock last year, about $13,000. Hope to add to that. But my interest is in the Historical Society, and Dick has done the most of anyone for it.
Right.
I was no good when I was president, but no, one interesting thing, I gave the talk first at the Baptist Church at one of their anniversary luncheons on Central Square, particularly in the early 20s. What was in each building, it was quite different from
Right.
it is now, and I've written that up. In fact, in my Small Town Kid, see there's a chapter circling the square.
I do have this book at home.
That's probably, I'm going to volunteer this afternoon. I'm going to write superintendent schools and see if they'd like some books like that in their local history classes, not because it's mine, but because I bought 2,000. I've got about 400 in my garage, and we're trying to clean out in case we have to move in a hurry to a extended care facility. We'll go over to Bedford if we do.
Are you staying in town for summer, or you're moving?
Well, I'm in Westford all the time.
Okay, so you're not moving out.
That's where my wife said I'd never leave Chelmsford, but that's what was called the West Precinct of Chelmsford until 1729. And where we live was her family farm in 1680, and she sold it in 1989, 301 years later, because the taxes she was paying, there was a house that's still there, and 150 acres of land, and she was paying $200 a year taxes. She got a tax bill this particular year, I forgot what year it was, it'd be $1,200. And we couldn't support that, and our son, and we didn't want to sell. We sold it, and we were very happy they put in Hildreth Hills. And of course the guy that put in that was too nice a guy. He did everything for people, lost it to the bank, and changed hands. Hicks, the only one made money on that, because he was working for the banks He wanted to become manager. We didn't want him. Didn't think he had qualifications. I don't think too much of. He's a great builder. I think he's a good builder, but other things I don't like. I know his father very well. He was a high school teacher in Chelmsford. Had 10 kids, I think, or 9 kids. And so he was working for the banks, and for some reason they fired him. And he didn't like that, so he sued them for $1 million. Well, before the suit came up, the banks had gone under, and the FDIC handled it. And they settled with Hicks by giving him about, just out of 150, I don't know, 40 acres, 35 acres or something, which was slated to be built up but hadn't been under the first construction. And he got that for nothing. And he's building on it now, which he called Hildreth Heights. He's renting the sewage system and the roads, but it's really a separate development.